So Dr. Picton and I have been brought up from the cells and we're about to be tried. Me for the offence of stealing a tomato from a local market stall. Him for much more heinous crimes which I can't go into on film. And that's because, as you'll note, we've arrived at St George's Hall and the old court of assize. And there it is. Well, there's a judge's chair anyway. And here are the benches where counsel would have sat. The jury, of course. And then the defendant, the most wicked defendants you'd ever have thought to have seen. Like that one there, for example. Only joking. Public gallery. Hello, here I am, as you can see, in the judge's chair in St George's Hall in what is now a disused courtroom. Nevertheless, still very beautiful, and a building and a room that you should come and have a look at. I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk to you about case law. Now, really, you're old hands at case law. You spent much of your first year getting to grips with what really should be viewed as stories. So I think of them when I'm reading a case. Sometimes one has to read cases multiple times as a story. So whether you're sat at home on your sofa reading your case on your iPad, or instead if you're in the bath relaxing, reading it in the hard copy, perhaps not the best place to take your iPad, or in the garden, reading wherever it might be. You're going to spend perhaps also maybe at your desk even novelly, or in the library. You're going to spend significant amounts of time reading case law, huge amounts of time. When I started university I had perfect eyesight. Now, of course, my eyes are much worse because I spent voluminous amounts of time reading. So what should you look out for when you're reading a case? How should you go about using that equity judgment to help your reading? Well, this is my quick guide to reading a case. Okay, so here is my short guide to reading an equity case and thinking about how you might engage with the primary source in the best way to get the most from it. So the case I've chosen for us to look at is Jones and Locke, 1865, 1 Chancery Appeal. Cases at page 25. So there's our volume 1 here, top left, and then of course our page 25, and then we come down from the previous case of Re Tressida to Jones and Locke. There it is, the title of this very important 3 certainties case that we've touched on in that separate equity short video on the case down by the Rufford Canal that you can access. Here it is, there's the title of the case there, Jones and Locke. Then we get our catchwords here about the incomplete gift that we will see in due course regarding this oral declaration of trust, potentially, in this 1865 judgment in November before the Lord Chancellor. There we see the LC. Here is our head note. So a brief exposition of the facts here and the key phrase, I give this to baby for himself. Of course, I give, we might think that's symptomatic of a trust. So we're thinking, oh, is this case going to be about either a gift or a trust perhaps, or at least some form of passage of property? Then we see what was held by the judge in this short summary here, that there had been no gift or valid declaration of a trust for the son, the infant. So that short synopsis there. Of course, the very busy law student might limit their reading to just that we've looked at, but that would be highly problematic. So we must descend into the case, and here we are. So here are the facts. Robert Jones, we're trying to now to get as much from this case as possible, but having in mind that we've got time pressures, many cases to read as equity undergraduates. So Robert Jones, we see, is an ironmonger. Remembering these facts, remember in my introduction in St George's Hall, I said, think about these judgments as stories. And that's to help you remember them, of course, and remember both the ratio, which is the most important thing to remember, but also to remember the facts, because it helps you remember that ratio. So here we've got this ironmonger in Pembroke, goes away on business, comes back, and goes into the kitchen, as we see here, where he sees his infant child, the son, the child's nurse, who says, "Oh, look, you've come back from Birmingham and have not brought baby anything." He says, "Oh, I gave him a pair of boots and now I'll give him a handsome present." He then goes upstairs as the father and brings down a piece of paper, which was a cheque for £900. So there's our subject matter. This is the key phrase about intention now. Look, it says, "Look you here, I give this to baby. It is for himself, and I am going to put it away for him, and will give him a great deal more along with it." Is that sufficient to manifest either a gift or a trust, those facts? That's what we're thinking about here as we progress through these other facts. And the sad tale whereby the father passes away, as you can see, before he gets a chance to formalise that which had been done in that conversation. Then as we progress, you can see a very short summary of the facts there. Then we have the first instance decision, where the Vice-Chancellor Stewart holds that there had been a valid declaration of trust, which is good, but this then gets appealed, except of course by the widow, the baby's mother, which is unsurprising. Then we get argument for the appellant first. This is interesting. You should engage with this. There is an argument that you've got a lot to read, so perhaps you should spend this time looking at secondary sources, but a brief look at counsel's argument is useful. And of course that isn't usually only contained in the official law reports, which is what this is a copy of. So we see some argument there deployed by counsel. Then we see the respondents there for the infant child arguing back, "No, we think these views are preferable." And then, of course, we progress to the most important part of this judgment, which is the Lord Chancellor's judgment on this appeal from the Vice-Chancellor. We see that Cranworth is the judge on the woolsack, or more accurately at this stage, of course, sitting in the Court of Chancery, hearing these issues in this unique equity jurisdiction. And the key part to focus on is all of his judgment, and it is relatively succinct, so there's no reason why you wouldn't read all of it. But for the purposes of the assessment, you perhaps might want to think about the key elements that make you or cause you to think about how this case is deployable in assessment. And I think that the key phrase to draw out is just over the page, actually. And it's this bit here where the judge says, of course, "I should have every inclination to sustain this gift, but unfortunately unable to do so. The case turns on the very short question whether Jones intended to make a declaration that he held the property in trust for the child. And I cannot come to any other conclusion that he did not." And this is the key phrase then you should remember for assessment. "I think it would be a very dangerous example if, quote, loose conversations of this sort in important transactions of this kind should have the effect of declarations of trust." So loose conversations. That's the key part that we might remember with Jones and Locke. The quest for formality, for seriousness, to ensure that gifts or trusts are made with the proper formalities in place. Not some conversation with the nurse in the kitchen trying to placate her on a trip back from Birmingham to ensure that she thinks better of the father because booties are insufficient. That £900 is a much better present, more handsome present. We then progress towards the end and we see this final telling sentence, which I think is instructive in a number of ways. "I extremely regret this result, but it is obvious that by the act of God, this unfortunate child has been deprived of a provision which his father meant to make for him." But yes, there may have been intention to make that gift or potentially a trust, but of course it wasn't done, as we've seen, with sufficient regard to the formalities of the passage of property in these circumstances. So Lord Cranworth there is expressing that regret that what can't be done. So there we are. That's how we might read a case, how we might try and get as much from it as possible, but bearing in mind the tensions of assessment, those key colourful phrases that can be deployed along with the name of the judge. Lord Cranworth helps us remember what he said in the specific case, and therefore helps us remember for the exam. So think about the judges, think about the social conditions in which they were operating at the given time, the tensions within the equity jurisdiction that they were managing, and it'll help you to remember the cases. Then we go back up through counsel's argument, through some early nominate citations there, Harewood, for example, Vasey Jr. over here. And we go up through counsel's arguments, back up to the head note and the catchwords, and then of course the title. So think about some of those approaches that we've just used. Perhaps you have your own specific methods for approaching case law as well, that primary source repository that we've got of all these elegant ideas. Perhaps share them on the links below this video. So on that point, I'll say goodbye. Enjoy the cases, get into them thoroughly, and let's discuss them more in seminars. So goodbye.